12 Faces and Sober Speaks podcast, episode number 85. Today's guest is Amber Rose, and she has been sober since February 6th of 2020. Good morning, oh so sober mama. Hope Dealer for the Lost. Good morning. And Amber Rose just joined us. I think we've been following each other probably like the last month or so, and I just felt like, you know what, I wanted to have her on the podcast, so I reached out and she obliged. So today we're gonna jump in and hear her story, and hopefully you guys will be able to come with some questions, comments, whatever you have for not only myself but for the both of us. And like I said, it's gonna be a great conversation. Keegan Curtis, good morning. How you doing? Welcome to the podcast. All right, let me see. So you guys, hopefully you're having better weather than I'm having here in Minnesota. It's overcast. Hello, good morning. How you doing?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing
I'm
well.
so excited to meet you.
Likewise. I'm definitely looking forward to our conversation this afternoon for you.
Yeah.
So how you doing this Saturday?
I'm good. I'm winding down. I've been really, really busy the last couple months, so my Saturdays are kind of my me time, but I'm always excited when I get to connect with people on Instagram and talk about recovery and all those things that keep us going.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. Let me see, who is this? Amy and Sadie. Good morning, you guys. Like I said, if you guys have any questions for either one of us, don't hesitate to ask. We'll take a break in between the interview and answer them accordingly. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So you've been sober since February 6th of 2020. So what was life like before that?
So life was very chaotic for 25 years before that.
Okay.
It was a constant cycle of self-destruction, toxic relationships, alcoholism. Alcohol was my go-to drug, but I assure you, if I got drunk enough, I was willing to do just about anything you put in front of me. And it was just a toxic cycle of repeating that over and over, whatever it took to get outside of myself so that I didn't have to feel the trauma that I hadn't healed from on the inside.
Trauma. So what was the trauma that you actually faced?
So when I was 14, I did go through a sexual assault. That was a very, very public sexual assault. It was in the court system. I was from a small town. It was talked about in the town, although my name wasn't reported. It was in the newspaper. And back then I was told, I needed to go to therapy and I needed to do all these things. But I was 14 years old. I didn't get that. And it was also the same year I was introduced to the world of alcohol and drugs. So I chose to take that route instead of really getting the counseling that I needed and healing from some of that pain and anger that was on the inside.
No, you didn't get counseling. Were there people in your corner that was like kind of like swaying you to go or not to go? Like, what was that like?
So it was a mixed bag because I grew up in a house with addiction. I grew up with a mom that was an alcoholic, and although my father wasn't in the home, he was also an alcoholic. And I think my mom was as loving as she could be, but the truth is that there were many times that she wasn't really present for us as an active drinker, and she wasn't there. And so I was able to run the streets and do whatever I wanted to do, and nobody really stopped me.
Okay. Yeah, that I'm not gonna lie to you. That is definitely tough because I experienced that like when I was kind of growing up. Like both my parents worked. So it was like I was kind of in the home alone and I was experimenting. Hey, my dad, was an alcoholic. So I'm like, hey, No one's home. Third or fourth grade, I'm over here sampling alcohol, having no business even touching this stuff, but no one was also educating me about it. So yeah, I'm starting to notice that a lot of, I ain't gonna say a lot, but there are some parents for those who were actively or have eventually have an addiction. The parents weren't necessarily there enough to kind of give you like, hey, the do's and the don'ts. If you want to try this, wait till you become legally able to.
Yes.
And not any time before that. So I definitely understand that on there. So I noticed that you had. So was there any point as to when you actually started seeking therapy, or was that like later on in life?
I was a chronic relapser for 25 years. I did seek out treatment at numerous times. However, very stubborn and very hard-headed, wanted to do it my way, didn't want to take the suggestions. And I think being very, very young also was a disadvantage on my side at the time. And then the 6th, which I call my sober day, I call it the 6th and the 7th, and here's why. So on the 6th of February of 2020, I did overdose.
Mm.
And I did die, and I was brought back. And that was the life-altering moment for me because, ironically, I had prayed to die for 25 years prior to that, and my prayers had been answered. So I had a choice because I was still there, and I was angry. I was actually angry. I'm not going to lie to you and say it was some grand spiritual awakening right from the beginning, and I was so happy to be alive. I wasn't. I didn't want to go back to the pain. But I knew I had a choice. I had only 2 options at that point. I could keep using, and I was going to be dead very soon, especially with the damage to my body. Or I could use it as an opportunity to kind of, as a rebirth. So when I say the 7th too, that just happens to be the day I hadn't drank or had anything in my system within 24 hours. So it was kind of over that couple days, I was kind of reborn, I call it.
Good morning, Vero. That's one of my friends from elementary. So good morning. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the podcast out in California. Now it's one of those. So you battled a lot of demons for 25 years, and during that time, I know you said your mom was in the home, but your father wasn't in the home per se. Who was telling you, like, hey, Amber Rose, this ain't a good look? You know, you might want to, was there anybody saying that?
So the problem is no, because what would happen is when I started, not coming home as much as a teenager, my very first thing to do was to start getting involved in toxic relationships. 1, I didn't love myself. 2, it was an easy way to use. An older guy, access to alcohol, access to maybe things I couldn't buy yet. And so I found toxic relationships were my new thing. And they even felt comfortable to me. And I can admit that today. They almost felt comfortable to me because that's what I was used to. That's what I grew up with. It was almost like if we weren't fighting, I felt like you didn't care. You must not care about me. You're not fighting for me.
And do you think that eventually a toxic relationship became a part of the addiction?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
The chaos, the drama, because it was so much easier for me. And back then, now you'll hear me say I was toxic too, and they were very sick cycles. But back then, it was always all him. It was always his drug addiction that brought me backwards. That made me drink. Or the fact that he was angry that day made me drink. Or maybe some of the violence or the abuse that was going on. And I can even fully admit that it came from both ends today. I was a very mean alcoholic. I would drink to blackouts. I would say things I'm very ashamed of. I would get physical. So, but back then I didn't see it that way. It was always all him. It was somebody else all the time. And that's why I needed to drink.
And I can piggyback off of that because we don't have the problem. We're not the issue. So of course we're going to place the blame on somebody else, even though we might have a bigger hand or be the bigger problem.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So I like that. So now you mentioned the fact that you had overdosed and you now are sober. So what was life like in the early stages? What was it like for you? Did you go to AA? Did you try to get a sponsor? Did you go to rehab? Did you go to detox? What was that early process for you like?
So for me, I have a more rare experience to share because I got sober February 2020. If you look at the timeline, what happened in March, everything started to shut down around the world because of COVID. So I was in intensive outpatient treatment, which that had been the right choice for me because I had children at home that I was solely responsible for. And I was supposed to be there 5 days a week. And then all of a sudden there was nothing. Groups were completely closed. They hadn't even set it up to go online yet because nobody knew what was happening. This was all new at this time. Meetings had closed down. And that's kind of ironically how my whole role on Instagram came into play because it was never intended. I just started posting about how I felt, and I didn't even know there was an entire recovery community on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like the fact that you mentioned how you were, displaying your, how you were feeling, every step of the way. Because I know that when I did it, I was that guy that was kind of quiet for about a year. I kind of just viewed page and said, like, I might have posted my recovery dates, but I wasn't so much expressive because I was still kind of in that healing process. Like I said, I went through a divorce early in my sobriety, and it was all kind of emotions. But yeah, I like that, and I'm glad you mentioned it because I'm always curious how people are when they first come on social media or find social media in terms of the recovery community and how they interact. So I think that's pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? That you were open, because I was kind of afraid. I was like, I don't want to tell everybody my business. Like, I did this and did that. But then over time, I began to be more comfortable, be more open with it. And I wish I would have did it earlier because I was a wreck that first year in sobriety. I almost relapsed, almost quit grad school, all kinds of stuff because, it was a new chapter in my life. So how was that for you? I mean, you discuss your sharing, but how was it for you truly? I mean, yeah, anybody can type how they feel, but how was life like outside of social media? You know what I'm saying?
Outside of social media, so it was very difficult. At that time, I was actually going through a divorce myself, and so I had come, and this was, now keep in mind, remember the times we're talking during COVID times. There weren't many times for me to go, not many apartments open. I went home to my mother's house. My mother is still an active drinker, and so not only did I learn the art of having to find alternative ways to get support, but living in a world where alcohol still exists, whether you and I choose to still drink or not, you know what I mean? So it really strengthened me that year. And also within the same year, I had a daughter that was in the hospital 13 times with an illness. And so I think that it's a hidden blessing. She's doing amazing today, but I think that played a role in making me get my shit together real quick, and heal.
And that's a blessing. That I want to point out to you, because a lot of times when you have those life altering moments, and of course we might be used to going a certain way. We know that, all right, yeah, I'm mad today, somebody didn't broke my heart, okay, I'm going to drink alcohol. But now you're in a situation where it's like, okay, I'm trying this new journey, but life is still going, and I have to be able to react in real time and not go to the store or not go get a drug because I know I have other things to worry about right now, and it's not necessarily about me. And you made sure your daughter was good during that time, which is is a plus. You know what I'm saying? So you had mentioned a few minutes ago about COVID, and I think that it's interesting because I think that was probably around the time that I think I had started to, kind of really put myself out there. It was between 2019, 2020, something like that. But I can just imagine. I mean, you got sober during a time when everybody was going in the house and probably picked up an addiction. You know what I'm saying? And you're doing the exact opposite. So I commend you, because that takes a lot of strength. That takes a lot of willpower. So I commend you on that, most definitely. So when you on your profile, and I know you suffer from PTSD, but did it at any point, when did you feel like, okay, I need to really immerse myself into therapy, immerse myself into trying to really better yourself mentally, physically, and everything else?
I think the first year I did really struggle. And it's interesting, when we talk about Instagram, if you go back and you look at the progression of my timeline, you can see, like, in the beginning, I'm much more angrier in my posts. I can't accept on life's terms. I'm mad at people. I'm venting about them and not about myself and what I can control and do to fix it. And now we are, you know, where we are today. But one thing that really happened was last year, July of last year, there was kind of, it came to a head between my ex and I, and it was very, very violent. And I had to seek an order of protection and things of that nature. And I began talking about it very openly on here, and how I was going through this in recovery and I could still remain sober, and I didn't have to give up that, you know, first couple of years of recovery just for this incident. And people began reaching out to me, you know, other women who may be in that same situation, and saying how much that inspired them. And then from there, it just kind of took off, and that just kind of, I just started talking every day and being open and being honest. And I don't really know how to explain it other than that. It kind of all just fell into place and became what it was. At this point, I think that was the turning point, seeing that it wasn't just all about me anymore. There were other people that looked up to my story. There were, you know, it was time to heal. It was time to take a different approach to things, for sure.
And Jessica, good morning, Jessica. Getting sober in 2020 was wild. Well, trying to stay sober during COVID was wild. You know what I'm saying? Man, because it was like, I was walking outside like, is it the end of the world? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that type of deal. So I understand. I mean, and because nobody knew what was going on. If this was going to be a full-blown lockdown to where we really couldn't move around. So I could just imagine. But hold on a second. Let me see. Now, what do you think? Like, I noticed that you mentioned it a couple of different times, taking ownership for the mistakes that you make. But how did you do that? How did you program your mind to say, you know what? Because you mentioned earlier that you were blaming your past situation. So now you're sober. Now you're taking ownership. You're accepting those mistakes that you made. What brought that? What you know gave you that strength to say, you know what? I got to look inside myself and, you know, openly say, you know what, I made mistakes here, I made mistakes there, so that I don't have to make those mistakes again, or anybody else that might be in the same situation make those mistakes.
Because I think I finally got to a point where I realized that until I healed, it was going to continue to be the same. Whether I put the alcohol down or not, I was walking around with all this unhealed trauma. And as a result, I was angry, I was sad, I was toxic myself. I just was a mess. I was a big mess. And so by taking ownership and healing from the past, things began to change. I began to love myself. I began to change my perception on the world. You know, not everybody was out to get me. I began to have a lot more peace, compassion, understanding, and to look at people, whether it be my ex or my mother, people I've had pain with, and say, you know what, they're human too. And it's not excusing what they're doing. I'm not giving free passes for people hurting you, but it is saying that they're human too, and they're sick too. And by having a little empathy, it makes it feel a little more less harsh, if that makes sense to you. It makes it easier to bear, because now they're human. They're not this monster. They're a human being.
Hope Dealer for the Lost has a question.
Sure.
Amber Rose, what did you do for aftercare when you got rid of the alcohol? Because after addiction is focused on healing, trauma, and hurt. I am proud of you, Amber Rose.
Thank you. I immersed myself in meditation. I got really deep into meditation, and I really immersed myself in a spiritual journey, because that's something I had no concept of before recovery. I just began reading and educating myself and realizing I wasn't in control. For me, it worked to turn something over to a higher power, and let go of that need to control everything. And once you do that, life is so much more peaceful. It truly is. It really is.
I understand. I like that, for real. And so what were some, like, you know, I noticed in some of your pictures you go out, you do things. So was that something you did beforehand, as far as, like, you know, being involved in your area? Was that something you did while you were actively, in addiction, or was that something you picked up afterwards?
Absolutely not. In fact, getting sober in the very beginning, and especially with COVID and everything shutting down, was a very lonely time for me because I didn't know anybody that wasn't in active addiction, including my own biological family. I really knew nobody. My whole life, when you've done that for 25 years, those are the only people you know more. So I had to reinvent everything. I had to meet new people. I had to go out into the community and learn to give back, to be of service. Because up until that point, when you're in addiction, I didn't know how to be of service. They're very selfish friendships. I take whatever I can get from you, you take whatever you can get from me, and as long as we're partying at the end of the night, however we made it there, whoever we had to hurt or step on to get there, it was a whole new way of life, learning to get outside of myself and think about somebody for once besides me.
Okay. That's I don't know. I think that like some of the activities that I was doing beforehand, like while I was drinking, I cut it off for a little while during the sobriety. Like I wasn't really, trying to watch a lot of basketball because I knew that if I watched basketball, especially, at that time I was on the East Coast or your time zone, and it was like I got to stay up till like 11, 12 o'clock at night watching basketball. And therefore, I would be drinking.
Yes.
And so for me, it was like for the longest, I'd probably say like over the last like two NBA seasons I've watched, especially in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But I always knew that like if I'm watching basketball, I'm up late, I'm associating that with drinking. And I know football, except for Sunday nights, but NBA, it could be every day of the week that the games are, especially the West Coast games, they don't start until 7 o'clock. That's 10 on the East Coast.
Yep.
So these games were ending till 1 o'clock. I had to get up to go to work. I was in the Army. I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, still intoxicated because I just went to sleep. So that's what I mean. So do you feel like those things that you actually did when you were drinking, was it difficult to do once you got sober, or it was just like I'm a little bit more mindful now that I am sober?
So socializing for sure. I had no idea how to socialize without alcohol or drugs in my system. I had a lot of anxiety. I didn't even want to leave the house. I don't remember for quite, and beyond any COVID things, I just didn't want to leave. I wanted to isolate. I didn't want to deal with life on life's terms. I know I keep saying that, but that was like my number one thing. I just couldn't cope with emotion or feeling or anything. I didn't know how to anymore.
And what was it like when you actually like shared with people that you given up, obviously I'm sure some knew that you may have OD'd, but like what was the reception to those that you shared that, okay, hey, I'm not doing these things anymore?
Many people didn't believe in me. Many people were like, yeah. I got advice like, oh, well, if you just quit for 6 months and then you just pick it up a little bit, you'll be fine. Or if you just quit for 6 months and then like go to pot, you'll be fine. I got lots of really bad advice. I got some people that were supportive, but not very many. Especially because I knew people that were in active addiction themselves. Today, I know wonderful people, and one friend, Rachel, who is coming on with me at my business, and I'm so excited. But she's been with me this whole journey, and she's sober today too. So that was one friend that got to stick with me that I got to see through her journey too.
Yeah, that's tough. And so how has it been for you? Once you joined the sober community, you interacted, you viewed pages, you commented, like how, looking back from the start of your journey once you got on social media up until now, like how is it for you navigating through the sober community?
So in the beginning, I feel that I wasn't very real when I was posting. Let's start that. Everything was always happy and sunshine and flowers. And that was not realistic. Then I started getting more real. Then that, my posts started, and that was and I think that's just a progression of the journey of me in recovery. And then my posts started getting more real. And then people started interacting with me and I started interacting with them. And That seems to be going well. I think it is a beautiful, wonderful community. It does have, it has flaws like anything, but I think you have a conscious decision to follow someone, not to follow someone, but keep an open mind. I always preach that. Please keep an open mind, because there's so much I can learn from you. There's so much you can learn. You might tell me something today I didn't know. And just because we don't all do it the same, not everybody's going to recover the same. Not everybody comes from the same experiences. We're all different people, different backgrounds, grew up different. Have an open mind. Don't judge a book by its cover. Be open-minded. So that's what I would say.
Damn, I had a question, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Sorry.
But no, it's okay. Now, what what is one thing that you picked up since being sober that you didn't think that you would actually be doing today?
This.
Like a hobby or arts and crafts, or whatever it is, traveling somewhere different. Like what would that be?
You're looking at this. This is about as outside of my comfort zone as it gets. I was an isolator. I was an introvert. I didn't want anything to do with other people, unless we were partying that day together, maybe. But other than that, no. So this is it. This Instagram, sharing my life, is outside of my comfort zone and is far from who anybody probably ever believed I would be today.
That's what's up. Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie, I remember in my past when I was drinking, like especially when I was married, and I couldn't stand that situation. So I would be like, F this marriage, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
She's doing this, she's doing the same thing, like the blame factor. But then now it's kind of interesting because it's like I just tell it how it is. I've had, I almost found myself being homeless last year, leaving Florida, coming here. But I had to share it. And then when I did share it, the people, some people that I'm like really, really close with in the sober community, they reached out to me, man, you all right? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, wow, okay, I got nothing but respect for this sober community, because here it is. We've only talked on a cellular device, on a computer or something. But I can have conversations with, with a good group of people, and they'll give me good advice even up until this day. And so I guess for you, like, my question is that, okay, you're 2 years deep in your sober journey. Like, how are you trying to impact individuals moving forward? We already know you've already shared what you shared your past, you've shared what you're currently doing, but how are you trying to impact those in the sober community starting tomorrow, or after this live is over? How are you trying to do that?
Moving forward, I have developed Graceful Amends, which it can be found now at gracefulamends.com, but it is in a transition period because my former co-owner stepped down, and now Rachel's coming on. So I just asked that we be given some time to transition, but that to me is my new baby, because that was the power. It was the forgiveness. It was the healing. It was exactly what Graceful Amends said. It was making amends with myself, with others, and just giving everybody the voice to heal, the voice of the families that were hurt, the voices of the addicts that were hurt. Let's just all come together and heal. Let's all hear each other out. Let's learn from each other and move forward.
Now, I'm glad you brought up the amends. If you don't mind sharing one incident or one situation where you actually had to make amends with a person, and how did they receive it?
So I had mentioned that my daughter was she had been hospitalized 13 times when I first got sober, and it was mental health related illness. And so I went and visited her one day, and I had to finally sit down and look at my daughter in the eyes and say, I want you to know that you have a right to feel any way that you feel. You have a right to be angry. I am receptive to that. I love you no matter how you feel. I am here, and I want you to talk. And it was like she just melted. It was like she melted. And that was probably one of the most, all of my children were the most powerful amends I made, but that's one that really sticks out in my mind, because I think that really helped her too. And she's come light years from there. She's doing so awesome today. So.
Yeah, I want to share it. Like, I thought about it. I had a situation, and it's not funny, but in 2009, right before I joined the Army, I was in Houston, and I was kind of in a little situation. And I probably had no business going out there before I joined the Army, but I went anyway because I was kind of, bouncing from my mom's house, my dad's house, my nephew's house, and anybody else that would just allow me to lay my head. And so I go to Houston. I'm there for about a month, and I made a mistake. The girl let me use her car. The woman let me use her car. I dropped her off at work, and a lot of the rest of that day I forgot about. And I had went to go get something to drink, and I drank and I drank, and then I think I had went to go pick her up or something, and somehow I ended up crashing the car, and I ended up having the police ended up coming. They said the car, don't ask me how, but the car was like sideways in the driveway. So that particular instance, police came. The police was like, we could charge you with a DUI, but since we didn't see you driving, we can't. But you're gonna have to leave this property. So I'm like, but where am I supposed to go? I'm like, I don't even live in Houston. And so I ended up, I ain't gonna lie, I slept outside at a gas station with a suitcase. The suitcase was still there, no money, nothing. I'm in a rough neighborhood in Houston, no joke, Northwest Houston. But I made it. I had a buddy of mine that I went to college with in Atlanta. I called him. I was like, hey, I need a place to stay for a couple of days. I'm going to come back to Minnesota. So during my sober period, over these last 6 years, like I don't have anything against the 12-step program. I've been in it, AA, I've done all of that. But I just like randomly will be like, oh, okay, I'm working a step and not even knowing it.
Yeah.
And so like I hit the person up, I called him and I said, hey, I'm sober now. I've been sober for this long. And I truly want to apologize for my actions in 2009. And this was like 10 years after the situation. But I felt like I needed to, like that was something that was weighing on my heart for all those years. And so I like that. It's just to be able to acknowledge or accept the fact that you made a mistake and you can't correct it or change it. But if you realize at one point, okay, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I messed up, but that's not who I am today. So I dig that. And then if you don't mind, is your website, is it up or is under construction so that like you can mention it? So
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. No, yes, it is up. It is up. And it has like a short bio of me and all that good stuff on there. But we are constructing. There's going to be more to it, and we're going to be changing just the design and that stuff a little bit. And I want Rachel to have a little say. I don't want her to walk into my project and feel like it's my project. I want her.
I understand. And then so what are you guys trying to do with that? Are you guys offering like services, or how is that?
So I think to continue building on what we're doing now, sharing experiences, your experience, strength, and hope, stories, blogging, but I would also like eventually I want it to become like a community-based thing where people can just talk, whether it be just a chat group or whatever it be, just another place to meet some more people and reach out if you need help.
Yeah, I dig that for sure. Like I said, once you get it back truly running, please let me know. It's advertisement. I have no problem with sharing it on my page. Let me see. I think you touched on it, but I want to ask it anyway, just in case if I forgot. How does Amber Rose, a person who's experienced toxic relationships, trauma, addiction to alcohol, I think you mentioned something about domestic violence in there. Taking all of that, putting it into one pot. How does Amber Rose want to help the sober community? Like from all those experiences that you went through, and obviously are living proof that if you change this and change that, then you'll have a different life. So what is it that you want? What does Amber Rose want to do to truly help this sober community?
I think just continue to be very open and honest about my journey. Do what I'm doing, because the truth is it's not all cookie cutter like I tried to present in the beginning. And you're going to go through, you'll see times where I was angry. You'll see times where I'm sad. Times I might be a little more in my feelings. Times I might be super happy. Just continuing to be very honest, because that is true recovery. You're learning how to deal with emotions. You haven't felt in feelings in a very long time, because we've been numbing ourselves. And it's okay to go through experiences and stay sober. It's okay to be honest. There's nothing wrong with you. We're all going through it, and you're not alone. We're all here for you. That's what I hope. Just to help, so even if it's just one person, feel less alone.
I like that. I like the one person, because I use that all the time. I'm like, man, I can have 100 views.
Yeah.
Somebody might watch it for 3 or 4 seconds, but if that one person watches it all the way through, that's who I want to reach. And so I like that. I definitely like that statement. And I being we're getting pretty close to the end. For somebody who has suffered with PTSD, and for a lot of years before I had even knew that I had PTSD, I was diagnosed in the military, but clearly after doing my own research and going to therapy and all this stuff, it's like, man, I've had issues for a whole lot of years. So my question to you is, being that, you have clearly, not saying you have your PTSD under like managed, but you're working towards it. So if there, someone out there that's watching that suffers from PTSD, like what would you like tell them, like, what to expect maybe the first 6 months of sobriety compared to, not doing anything about it, not addressing some of those issues?
We cannot address it, just like I didn't when I was 14. But it caught up with me, whether it was when I was 30, in my late 30s, or it was when I was 14. It's going to have to get addressed eventually. PTSD is not one of those ones that are just going to disappear. And I also want to tell you, though, that you're not, and I'm saying this because this is what I felt in the beginning, you're not crazy. I thought I was crazy. I didn't want to tell anyone about my symptoms, the flashbacks, the paranoia, the getting up 20 times in the middle of the night to make sure my doors are locked, things like that. It's okay. You're human. It's normal. And if you begin to talk and reach out, I promise you're going to get there. I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight. You're going to get there. But just keep talking. Don't give up. Don't give up.
Yeah, I like that, because I don't know like what kept me sober that first year, except for me being in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing you tell your story, I'm like, man, that was a cakewalk. You had to go through damn COVID. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is, I mean, man, like, that's crazy. Like, it's not a bad thing, but it to me it shows, for anybody out there that got sober during COVID, it shows your true testament of strength, because of the uncertainty and not knowing, like, man, okay, we're on lockdown, but I could go slide to the store if I wanted to, or you know what I mean? Like anybody else who didn't have a problem before COVID, who ended up getting a problem, are probably now watching these live interviews, because they're trying to figure out, like, I didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
Because they weren't sitting at home all day. They were at work. You know what I'm saying? But now you at home, now you have access to it, and now you abuse it. So now people who were probably making fun of us saying, oh, I don't have a problem, realize they had a problem during COVID. And now are trying to figure out how to fix it, which is fine, because I welcome you. I welcome everybody to come, you know what I'm saying, come into the sober community. Oh, you know what? Before we go, we going to conclude with this. As far as, like, because of the fact you said you were out there for 25 years, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably had your perception of sobriety. People sober, they're boring. So now that you're sober, how should people perceive you?
I would hope, well, now that I'm sober, I hope, first of all, people would perceive me very different. I would like to apologize first and foremost for anybody to anybody that I hurt in active addiction. That's something I always say. And today I just have an open mind, and I have a little more compassion and a little more understanding for every human, and no matter what their situation is or what they're going through. I have compassion, I understand, and I don't want anyone to feel alone. So that's who I am today. I just, nobody likes to feel alone. I know I didn't. You don't want to feel like you're the only one going through something. Like we said, if just one person understands you.
Yes, I love it. I love it. All right. Now, before we get up out of here, I usually allow, if you need to ask me anything, or if there's any questions you guys out there you want to ask before we conclude another wonderful episode. Oh, it's a whole lot of people that enjoy. I ain't even been looking. Okay. So of course you made it. You different. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. I haven't even been looking at this, so please forgive me. All these people, I didn't even. Okay, I'm caught up now. So yeah, before we go, I usually allow the guests, if they have anything they want to ask me or add to our conversation, we can, and then I'll do a closing. So it's on you. You got the floor.
I would like to go to you because I have the ultimate respect for you. 6 years.
Thank you.
I have so much respect for all those that came before me. I thank you for coming before me and showing us the way to do it. So what's a piece of advice you can give me to carry with me so that I can, because you have what I want,
Keep working your own personal program. What, as you mentioned, what works for you along, where you've gotten to this point may only work for you because you found a routine of what's going to keep you sober each day. Continue, you know what I'm saying? Continue to be as honest, be open, because like I said, it's one person out there seeking for that type of information. So just keep doing it, keep, providing information, create, those scenarios of, hey, this is what happened to me at this time. Because there's things that I randomly just pop into my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, I want to talk about that. Yeah. So don't be afraid to share a situation, because like I said, there's thousands upon thousands of people out here with thousands upon thousands of different situations. So if you allow yourself to share, it could be that one person that may inbox you, be like, oh, you know what, that hit at home. I just went through that last week, last month, last year. Now you sharing yours is now helping me heal, helping me move on, helping me be a better person on the long haul. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's it. Just, keep the great energy. You know what I'm saying? Just keep doing what you're doing. Whatever is working for you now, do it. And if you find something else you want to add on to it. But tell everybody too, so that, hey, it may help them. So that's probably the only thing I would say. And just, I take my sobriety as a job. It's like I wake up and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do to continue the sobriety? Okay, post something, go outside, go for a walk, try to get my health together. You know what I mean? I forgot to ask you that too, but yeah, let's see. Yeah. Oh, let me ask you that real quick, because we got a couple more. What about your health? Because I think it's important. How was your health early, when you were drinking, compared to like how your health is today? And then after that, I'm done talking.
When I was drinking, very overweight, very bloated, didn't take care of myself at all, didn't get out of bed most days. I was at the point I had to have a drink just to get out of bed, so that I didn't get sick. So it was very, very dangerous. And then, of course, the overdose. And so I wasn't doing so great after that. But today, I glow. People tell me I glow. When they run into me, they say they can't even tell. They're like, I can't believe that's you. You look so much different. And I just, spiritually, I've healed a little bit. Still got a long journey there, but my mental health and taking care of yourself physically, it really does make a difference. You really do need that overall approach to your health. I believe so.
I agree too, because I've lost like 50 pounds, like in this, between 50 and 55 pounds in this sober journey, and I'm still dropping weight, and I'm like, I don't even want to get no smaller, because I'm like, I'm 43, and I'm weighing how much I weighed at 17, and that's insane. Like, but I'm okay with it. You know what I'm saying? You know, except for my family, like, oh, you look sick. We need to feed you. I'm like, I eat, but I just don't gain weight like that no more. But Amber Rose, I just wanted to say thank you so very much for coming on 12 Phases Sober Speaks podcast, sharing your story, you know, being transparent and sharing some topics that some people are not truly comfortable with sharing. So I definitely appreciate that. And like I said, I'm always here. If you need me, all you gotta do is shoot me a message, because I don't have a problem with giving what advice I can give, or just even just a positive affirmation. Like, it doesn't matter. But like I said, we're friends now. So you can, you know what I'm saying, reach out, hit me up whenever, because like I said, this is what I want to do, is try to, befriend others in the sober community, but then also be able to help and, just get my own personal experience, and hopefully, be able to help somebody. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. If you watched it on the live, or if you're going to watch it afterwards, thank you so much for watching. Tag Amber if you have any questions on this, if you want to ask her something, or if not, click on her link, because I'm going to have her information in the description, and ask her questions. And like I said, even get her on your podcast. Don't matter to me. Get her on. She has a good story. So, like I said, Amber Rose, thank you. Thank you again for coming on. Great conversation. And I just wish you the best of luck. I don't even think you need the best of luck. You're on a good streak so far. So just keep it up. So, but thank you again for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Bye.
All right, take care.